Um, I don't know if it came before or after the divorce, but it just kind of like we didn't fight. I didn't hate him. I just I just didn't want to be married to him anymore. I just I didn't feel like I felt like because I didn't think he loved me that why would I why would I stay any longer? And I knew when I first found out nobody would want me. I had six children under seven. So I knew there was no point. Plus, I didn't want my children to grow up in a broken home. So I figured might as well just wait. Like like there was no reason to rush into that. And I thought, well, maybe he'll change. And he did to an extent change. Um, like, he did do dishes or he did cook or those things. He did become more active in the church at a different level, but I I I don't think the forgiveness really came until after I was out of the marriage. I don't think I forgave him during. And I can picture some of it like because he'd be teaching one of our Sunday school classes and I didn't want to be there because I didn't respect anything he had to say. I knew he had it all up here, but I didn't believe that what he was saying was from here. Like whatever he was teaching, it didn't matter what he was teaching on. I I didn't want to be in that room many times. And a lot of times I would like go work in the nursery or make an excuse not to be there when I knew he was teaching. Because I couldn't respect it at all.
Do you feel like you became bitter?
I don't know that bitter was the word. I was just over it. Like all these people thought he was this great person.
Yeah.
And I worked really hard to make everybody believe that as well, that everything was fine. Like no matter where we went, people would see us, we'd hold hands and we'd laugh and we'd joke. And, the kids weren't allowed to sit between us. They had to sit on either side, like I wanted them to know how to treat a spouse and how to, so we didn't fight. We didn't really, have a lot of disagreements, but there was a lot lacking as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, for sure. So you get divorced, and at what point do you realize, I have to forgive him?
But I don't know if it was just like a pinpointed moment or if it was just that he kept showing up and kept helping. Like he helped me move. He fixed the shelves in the closet. He like all those things that I figured he would have just been glad to be done. And he kept coming back. So I think it took a little bit of time, but I realized like he knew he was wrong and he knew he had screwed up. And so I don't know if there was like a certain day
Sure.
or time. It was just kind of a
Yeah.
gradual.
Well, and I think it's important here for listeners to understand that while, yes, I opened the podcast with Ephesians 4:32 and will continue to say that it is not a suggestion, but it is a commandment, but we all get there differently. And listeners out there, it is okay. It doesn't matter whether it's an extramarital affair or any other kind of trauma. It's okay if you need to take some time to get to make the transaction of forgiveness. And Jeff, I'm wondering what you're feeling right now. Like I'm looking at you in this Zoom meeting and, you probably feel a little ganged up against at the moment. And I really hope you don't, but she's still in pain, which means she still cares and she still loves you. And this isn't how she drew it up either, right? Like when we were watching the couples that we were all jealous of at Clearwater Christian College, this wasn't part of the plan. I'm sure 6 kids weren't either, but but this was not part of the plan. And so she clearly got to a point where she forgave you and is forgiving you. And I think that sometimes we have to forgive over and over again because the pain comes back, and Satan really will bring that to us. And so, what does it feel like, Jeff, to be given, even though the marriage has not been restored? What does it feel like for the love of your life to forgive you?
It's powerful. Because you had asked her if she ever forgiven me in between, and certainly within those 15, 16 years, absolutely never felt like I was forgiven. Like she said, it was kind of like I had a 15-year audition to see if I was good enough. And once the divorce happened, um, I was fairly prepared to give her the distance that I felt like she wanted. She had another relationship. I was prepared to give her the distance and leave her alone. And she's the one that actually made the first step back towards me, which really, really surprised me.
Tell me more about that.
It was just kind of out of the blue for me that she messaged me that she felt like the relationship she was in wasn't right. It wasn't God honoring. And it's been 3 years of kind of ups and downs and backs and forths and pain and difficulty and all that kind of stuff. It's been a very difficult 4 years. But I felt like once there was some hope, especially like last year, I felt like we had really started closing some distance, feeling like there's a chance we can make it. It was a little bit of it was more validation that what God was doing in me was worth something. I still remember that night that she told me, and the next couple of nights that she told me, after she had asked for the divorce, didn't sleep for a couple of days, knew that I was at a breaking point in my life. I was at the closing of a chapter and the opening of a new chapter. And what was I going to let that next chapter be? I could have just walked away and lived however I wanted to, free from marriage. I could just carouse and live whatever, life I wanted. Or I could pour myself into Jesus Christ and see what it really meant to give him everything. And I remember having this conversation with some guys in a Bible study. I challenged the guys. I said, imagine if you set up everything, you're looking at a table that's set with all of the pieces of your life. And then what if you just cleared the table of everything and you put Jesus in the middle of that table and then started to reset the table? How different is that table going to look?
Wow. We need to let that breathe for a second. That is so huge. Because we all
extraordinarily painful when you realize God standing there at the door saying, as you're coming in after having said that, he's like, okay, let's do that. That's a great plan. I'm going to clear your entire table, and then we're going to reset this. Praise to him for his mercy. His unfailing love endures forever. His mercies are new and fresh every morning. That he was willing to let me start over with back to basics, back to scripture and prayer, in a way that I'd never experienced before. But having nothing, having everything taken away, that he's all I had left.
Yeah.
And that work that he did kept me coming back to Tammy. I wanted her life to be good, whether I was a part of it or not. Whatever I could do, whatever I could share, whatever I could sacrifice. I loved her with a very new love, a love that was rooted in my faith in Jesus. Because of Jesus' love for me, I wanted Tammy to feel loved. And I didn't know if she had ever felt loved. And if somebody else was giving her that love, that's fine. You know, as long as it's being done through Jesus. But I praise him that he gave me many, many opportunities to keep bringing his love back to her. So whether it was helping with the Christmas decorations or, you know, whatever the list that she had, whatever opportunity she gave me, I would jump on that. And that was a sense that she left that door open, that I could keep coming back into her life, was a sense of acceptance in the changes that God had done in me, which I took as a reflection of her forgiveness.
Yeah. I was just getting ready to say that is a powerful Tammy. Powerful fruit of your forgiveness. Because yeah, Jeff was and is seeking his own relationship with Jesus, but if you would have frankly treated him like you wanted to, he probably would have turned from God completely. Because why? Like he said, he could live it up, right? He could be with whoever he wanted to be as much as he wanted to be, but your micro decisions to forgive him pointed him to the one who forgave us. I think of the soil on Golgotha and how the earth was changed by that blood to cover Jeff's sin, my sin, your sin, and I tell people all the time, Hitler's sin. Because the Bible tells us that we are to forgive because we ourselves are forgiven. And so, Tammy, what an inspiration you are going to be, and you are. And the fact that you're not bitter, and I bring that up because I'm not telling my 2,500 people to follow you or anything, but what I am saying is that your presence on Facebook is so hilarious. Like sometimes she'll post these memes. I'm like, okay, I know this is funny because it's Tammy. I'm tired. It might be the first one I saw in the morning, but the joy of the Lord is your strength. The joy of the Lord is so evident, and people that are watching this on YouTube are seeing it on your face. I'm so grateful that God gave you the ability to forgive, and I will always say that I believe that our ability to forgive these things is itself a fruit of forgiveness. And while we're talking about Jeff and his indiscretion, we know that you weren't perfect in the marriage and that he had to forgive you for some things. And so, Jeff, could you tell us a little bit about that? Like, obviously, you made a mistake, but we're human beings and we all fail. What is your journey of forgiving Tammy of things that hurt you? We've talked about some things that hurt her. What's your journey been like of things that hurt you to forgive her?
Again, prior to the divorce, I very much knew that she didn't love me anymore. It was really obvious. It's been a couple of years. She hadn't told me she loved me in a couple of years. So I knew that was kind of, that the things she did in a wifely kind of a way, regardless of what category be in, was really out of a sense of duty, certainly not out of a sense of love from me. Loved her kids, passionately loved her kids, but never felt like I was really particularly high on the list. After the divorce, just the nature of the experience, there was numerous ways that she hurt me very deeply. But throughout, how dare I? How could I be that kind of a person that would do something so grievous, so traitorous, vile, and not forgive? Knowing everything that Jesus Christ forgave me of, not just the eternity from sin, he died on the cross and his blood, saved me, but also just foolish stuff, decades of foolishness and stupidity. And he was forgiving and gracious and merciful and patient and long-suffering and forbearing. And I reflect often from the Old Testament. People think of the God of the Old Testament as this mean, angry, smiting God. But when you look at it, he spent 1,000 years with the nation of Israel, patiently trying to woo them back to himself, warning them, sending chastisements to bring them back, to bring them to repentance, to forgive them of their sin every single time. Some of the kings did unspeakable things. Yet when God judged them, they would cry out in mercy and he would forgive them and he would restore them over and over again, even to the very end. Practically as Jerusalem is burning in flames, God is still sending a message to Zedekiah through Jeremiah that if you will just submit, I will spare your family. And Zedekiah still wouldn't do it. So I felt like, regardless of what Tammy did, lie to me or whatever hurt that I was feeling, was nothing compared to what I'd done to her. And I was not going to be a person that couldn't forgive. I'd become a person that couldn't believe what I had done, like couldn't conscience what I'd done. I wouldn't have forgiven myself what I had done. So for me, it was not a difficult challenge to forgive her of what I consider to be minors.
It reminded me of the parable of the debtor in the New Testament, where he had been forgiven of all these debts, and yet when it got turned around and he needed to forgive a debt, an actual debt, he didn't. And I think that's what you kind of just described. Like, how could I not forgive her given what God has done for me? That verse in Ephesians 3 that says we are to forgive because we ourselves have been forgiven is powerful. But we are human beings with real hurt and with real pain. And I just love that visual that you talked about, to say to an all-powerful God, clear the board. The King of Kings, you stay right there and you put where you want people, and you script this up because I have sufficiently screwed my life up. And the visual there is just unimaginable. And the forgiveness between the two of you guys are unimaginable. And I'm looking at the pain in your eyes. And so now for some hard-hitting questions, and you can decline to answer them. And remember, like I told you, there's an edit button. But Tammy, do you still love Jeff?
Sure.
I don't have to ask Jeff, I know. Either of you can answer this, and there'll probably be some awkward silence. I remember when I first moved back to Clearwater and went to Calvary, I landed in Cheryl Rice, and for listeners who don't know who that is, that's the senior pastor's wife. The only seat available in that room was this one seat by this firecracker about 5'2". I had no idea who she was. I had just moved to Clearwater. And when it came time for her to ask for prayer requests, so I left in February, filed for divorce, and got it in March. This was May. And so she asked for prayer requests. And I was kind of in that mode that Tammy was just talking about, just kind of like, I can't deal with this mode, put my head down, do the things. And I remember Cheryl saying to me, when she asked for prayer requests, I was like, well, I just finalized a divorce and, kind of sucks right now. Lots of pain going around. And I'll never forget when she prayed, she said that one of God's favorite works is reconciliation. And for a long time, that served to indict me because I was like, I can't reconcile with this person. And so unless there's a miracle, then it's dangerous for me to reconcile with this person. But do either of you see a reconciliation in your future?
We've talked about it a few times, but I don't know that we have a conclusion yet.
That's fair. What are your thoughts, Jeff?
It's certainly been a serious roller coaster. I really thought last year we were getting really close. I'd actually put a ring on her finger. It was obvious that too early, too soon. I honestly, over the last 12 months, I've deeply struggled with understanding where her heart is and what she wants and where she's going. And is she still looking for something in somebody else? Is there still somebody else out there that she thinks is going to meet her needs and fill those gaps? I just don't know. I would love to. I would marry her tonight if we found a pastor that would marry us. I would marry her tonight. Yeah, she's got some. She has told me she feels like she has some things that she has to take care of.
And that's fair. And that's fair. And that's not withholding forgiveness, right? It's just, here's another hard-hitting question for you. Have you been to counseling together?
Not since the divorce.
We tried a few times before the divorce, and we've had plenty of offers. And that was one of his complaints when I first asked for the divorce. He's like, everybody else gets to go for counseling. Why won't you? And I was like, I sit on the other side of the desk.
Yeah, she said she knew everything that the counselors would say, and she knew none of it would work.
Okay, well, I'm here to tell you you're wrong about that. But anyway, well,
I was in the moment too.
Well, for sure. And look, the thing is, and I feel like we're just three friends, and the rest of the world is listening to us talking right now. But the thing is, too, Jeff, is I can see where Tammy would be go come, because that pain is so deep. And unless the Lord decides to take it away, Satan is going to continue to use it to make her run. Yeah. And I can't.
She's certainly mentioned that on several occasions. Almost that very thing.
Yeah, because I wish that I'm not trying to hurt your heart, Jeff. But I wish, and there are listeners, women out there under the sound of my voice who know, yes, somebody understands that inexplicable pain, and you've owned it. Like, you've called it reprehensible, you've called it a bunch of words I never would have put on your mistake. You're a human being bought by the same blood that I am. And so it is my prayer that you guys keep fighting for the vows that you made in 1995. Even though they've been broken and shattered and all of those things, we serve a God who puts things back together. We serve a God who makes all things new. We serve a God who will redeem all the years the locusts have stolen. And it is my prayer that you guys would find reconciliation, and the power that could be in the two of you together, mentoring young couples, mentoring people who have been through the same thing. Tammy, I pray, and I'm adding it to my war room wall every day, that you can find your way past that wall of, I can't, because I tell people all the time, they ask me why I don't date and if I ever think I'll get married again. And my answer is always, another divorce will kill me. It will literally kill me. That pain will literally take me off of this planet. And so I dated a guy last summer, I think, for like 6 weeks. And Jeff, it was getting serious. And when I would be going to sleep at night thinking about him proposing, all of that pain would come rushing back in, and I would feel like a building was on my chest. It was like, I can't put myself out there like that again. But I know that one day that will change. And my prayer is that one day, Jeff, I think, and it is my prayer for you, that you can find a way to forgive yourself, because you actually made the comment, I wouldn't forgive myself. And you need to know that discretion is as far, and Tammy, you need to hear me too, but from God's eyes, that indiscretion is as far as the east is from the west. Forgiveness doesn't mean that we walk back into the same situation where we're going to get hurt again. But what I do think forgiveness means is if somebody is showing you who they are, let's believe them. And there are not very many men out there who will own what they did and who will pursue you like he is pursuing you. And so now I'm just being your older, annoying little sister. It is my prayer that the fruit of both of your forgiveness will be reconciliation, and that your children will tell this story to their children and their children and their children, and that we will see beautiful, I've got chills even thinking about it, redemption of this story. Because what I see in my head is the power couple walking around Clearwater Christian College, that those of us who didn't date, who, like I said, got better with age, looked at and was like, I want that. And I want both of you guys to know you had that. You had that at one point where people were looking at you going, I want to be like them. If I get married, I want it to be somebody like Tammy. I want it to be somebody like Jeff. There's so much good here. You both love Jesus. You've both have been so transparent here with us tonight. And so I want those of you on the other side of this to know that this is real. This is about as real as it gets. I didn't know a good majority of this. And I have been fighting back tears during this entire interview, not just because these are my friends who I went to college with, but because Satan has gotten his teeth in this relationship and he wants to win. And I'll be damned if I will not pray against it, because the way the Lord ordered it was forever. And if we all got our lives completely upside down and never got another chance for everything that we did, man, life would suck. But I understand that this is a big thing, and both of you have things to forgive. You know, I'm sure putting a ring on her finger and then having that hope taken from you was painful and needed to be forgiven. And so there's going to be lots of opportunities for you guys to continue to forgive each other. But my prayer is that there will be reconciliation. And when that happens, I want an invite to that wedding. I don't care if it's just your kids and me. I want an invite to that wedding. What a powerful story both of you have shared with us today. I always like to give the microphone to my guests last. And so we'll start with Tammy and then we'll give it to Jeff. But there are people listening to this podcast. There are women listening to this podcast who have been on Tammy's side of an extramarital affair. There are men who've been on Jeff's side of an extramarital affair, and you can flip that on its ear. So there are people listening to this podcast who have been betrayed by the love of their life. Tammy, what would you say to them in this moment where they're probably the pain that they're feeling after hearing your story is probably palatable? What do you say to that person? What do you say to that girl out there?
Seek Jesus. Yeah. And don't stop.
Tammy, what you've done here today, we will never know the reach of the people that are listening to your story and your forgiveness, and the fact that you took steps back towards someone who harmed you, who hurt you. That is Christ-like. That is highlighting the star of the story. And so I just think that needs to be pointed out, that you, if this reconciliation happens, it's going to happen because of you. Because you, after the divorce and even now, have taken steps towards someone who hurt you very deeply. And so I hope and pray that you can find your way if it is the Lord's will. Seek Jesus. In the hard days, seek Jesus. Because then that chessboard gets cleared and you put the king on his throne and he can fill your life with Jeff if that's what he wants. If that surrender is what you just said, seek Jesus. And so thank you, because I think that there are people out there that need to hear that. And guys, I know there are women out there whose husbands cheated on them and probably harmed them to domestic violence too. That's not Tammy's story, and you're like, why would I seek Jesus? Why would I do that? Why would a good God let this happen to me?
Because man's the one that failed me, not God.
And I'm silent for a minute because that's so important. And you could slap that statement on this entire ministry, the Wednesdays with Watson ministry. Man hurt me, not God. He is a loving God who wants to see reconciliation in all of our relationships, not just yours. I thought that I would get reconciliation with my ex-husband before he is no longer on this planet. I wanted that because I believe that would have been a beautiful story. I dreamt of the redemption. I dreamt of the remarriage. I dreamt of the life that I thought I signed up for, which was not the life that I got. And he's gone now, and I don't get that reconciliation. But let me tell both of you, if he were on this planet, even as horrible as he was, I would be working towards trying to, I don't know that I would marry him again unless there was a radical change, but I certainly would have taken those steps like you did, Tammy, to him. And I didn't, and he died, and now he's in eternity, probably not heaven, because I couldn't get past myself. So anyway, that was, I pontificated there on my own story a little bit, but I think it's important. Okay, Jeff, now the mic is yours. What do you say to men out there like you?
Basically the same thing Tammy said. And it's not just if you're in trauma, not just if you're in a bad marriage. If you're at the beginning and everything's still, honeymoony and wonderful and frolicking in the meadows, if you're not chasing after Jesus, he's not the centerpiece of your life. If you're not looking to him to author, the kind of phrase I've gotten in the habit of saying is your days and your ways. Every day needs to be wrapped around him, and every path that you take, the way that he creates, he's both your companion on those paths, but he's also the one creating the path. So when there's bumps and there's dips and there's scary parts, he made it that way. And so he's become the sovereign of my days and my ways. And
wow, I love that.
It's the only way to live. It's the only way you get any meaning. I'm so exhausted trying to chart my own path and plan my own success, and it's exhausting. And I don't want to do it anymore. And now that I've spent, I'd been saved for 36 years before God finally radically and tragically, catastrophically got my attention. Allowed me the opportunity to pour myself back into him and to say, okay, I've said I trusted you all these years. Now I'm actually going to put everything in your hands. I'm actually going to trust you. I'm going to take everything in my life and put it in your hands and let you take care of it. And I think you're going to do a better job than I am. And then he crafts purpose and he crafts meaning and he makes things make sense. And it's just a much better way to live, a more authentic way to live. So like, if you're in the midst of it, if you're getting beaten down by whatever, if life's beating you down, if you feel like you deserve something, like you're owed something that you're not getting, talk to Jesus.
Yeah.
Because he's got the answer. Whatever you're feeling, whatever you're trying to cope with, whatever baggage you're carrying, Jesus has the answer. And most people never know because they never authentically allow him to take the reins, to take control. We think, we'll go to church and we'll pay tithe and we'll, read our chapter of Proverbs every morning, but we don't dig into that relationship. In Jeremiah, he said, if you seek me early, you will find me when you seek me with all your heart. In Hebrews 11, he said, you can't please him unless you recognize that he exists and he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. And if you're not chasing after him in a relationship, nothing else is going to work.
Yeah. I love that. If you want to know this Jesus that we're talking about, this podcast is listened to all over the world, except for that rogue continent, Antarctica. Can't find a listener there. If you don't know who Jesus is, if you happened on this podcast and you don't know who we're talking about, or you want to know him more, or you want to know how to get this peace that passes all understanding, hit that contact Amy button. And if Jeff and Tammy will allow me, I'll put their contact information, email address. We would love to lead you to the star of the story, because he is the only way that we get through these pains, whether they're self-inflicted or we inflict them on other people. Jesus is the only way. He is the star of the story. And so I want to thank both of you guys for being here today. I know this was not easy, and I am desperately praying that you guys will continue to seek after Jesus. And I know in seeking after Jesus, his will be perfected in you, because he tells us that he will perfect all that concerns us. And commit your ways unto him, trust also in him, and he will bring it to pass. And so I don't know what's in your future, but I do know that I am so grateful that from this pain, from these ashes, that both of you guys land at Jesus is the only answer. And so thank you for being here today. Thank you for the beautiful way that you shared your story. Thank you for the transparent way that you shared your story. I know it's going to be so helpful to so many people. And again, listeners out there, if you want to know the star of the story, you can contact us in any number of ways. And so Tammy and Jeff, thank you again for being here today. I'm going to close this like I close everything. And Tammy, you get it for the second time, that you are seen, you are known, You are heard. You are loved. You love each other, don't forget. And you are valued. And you matter. And you're worth fighting for. Your marriage is worth fighting for. Your relationship is worth fighting for. And most of all, the completed work of Jesus on the cross and that message is worth fighting for. It's worth getting behind microphones and keyboards. And so thank you guys for being here today.
My pleasure.
Well, guys, that is the interview in its entirety. So thank you so much for listening to part 2 of the interview. If you missed part 1, you might be a little bit confused. It is the episode right next to this one. So Tammy and Jeff are currently divorced and living their lives separately, both still confused as to what they want to do. And so in 2 weeks, I sat down with both of them, and we will be publishing episodes where Tammy talks to me on an individual basis, and so does Jeff. I give both of them a 30-day challenge in those interviews. We are going to continue to visit this episode of Forgiving Trauma Makers, and we want to see beautiful things come out of not so beautiful things. We know that by his stripes we are healed, and so as we march into March after their episodes, we will be talking about the price that was paid so that we could have the opportunity to forgive. Until such time, I hope that you will come back here in 2 weeks for their individual episodes. Until then, you know what I'm going to say. You are seen, you are known, you are heard, you are loved, and you are so, so valued.
Let my life glow.